We will continue from the last slide where we have studied the functions. Now we will move on to the next one. The next topic is scope and lifetime of the variables. So we will be generally talking about what is the scope of a particular function or the scope of the particular variables or the parameters that are mentioned in a function. So the scope of a variable is the portion of the program where the variable is recognized. So something you can assume that it will be a local variable and something we will call as a global variable. Let us take for example, what is the scope of a particular chief minister? So you can say that the scope of the particular chief minister would be limited to the area where he is residing or the state where he exercised the power, whereas the prime minister he exercises his power over the entire region or the entire India. So what we can say, we can attribute that okay, this chief minister can be attributed to the local variable where he's exercising his local powers, and whereas this prime minister we can assume that he is a kind of the global variable where his authority is throughout the entire regions. Okay. So we have local variables and as well as the global variables. The local variables are those variables whose programs or the variables which you can say a kind of validity whose validity prevails over the region or the area where it is defined, whereas the global variables, the validity of that particular variable ranges the entire program, or we can say the the existence or its power prevail over the entire till the existence of that particular program, and once the function is over they are destroyed. Okay, so we will look into the example. So this function says that okay, add two numbers a and b and the total it would be given as total a plus b, and finally we are printing that particular value. So when we'll through the terminal command we will use add 4 comma 9, it will return you 13. Take the same example again. So there will be continuation of this particular program in the next slide also. In the next program it will continue in the next block of the code which is mentioned in the next slide. So this add and this particular add are somewhat same, and later on we are adding one main block total. So we will see what is the total given. It is given in the next slide. Okay, so as we are seeing here, the total as mentioned is given as 0. Now let us call this function. Again, what is happening now, when we will call this function add total, it will give inside, it will give the total of a 4 and 9, that is 13, and when we'll print the block total it will give the total that is 0. Okay, and there is another way around here. We are adding a total and we are adding global total here. So global total means the prevalence of this particular variable total is taking its existence from this particular total, that is 0. Now total a and b would be given to this total. This is initialized to 0, so this particular thing is initialized to 0, so it will give you 13. Okay, and since the global, it is a global variable, when it will be printing the value of 10, it will also show you the value is 13. Since the values are now changed in this global variable. Okay, now we will talk something, we will talk about default arguments. The default arguments are the arguments that are given by default in the functional parameters, which if we are not providing any kind of say numbers or the arguments that are mentioned in the variable, mentioned in the function, then it would be taking up the default arguments. We will later on see through one easy example. Here you can see a snippet of the code is given, like calculate total amount discount percentage is equal to 0. So whenever we are running this particular program, if nothing is mentioned, then the discount percent would be given as 0. That means no discount would be given. We'll run through the code and we'll take one easy code and see how does it function. So here, so all the students kindly note it down. In the function, the parameter amount does not have the default value and it is required mandatory during the call. Okay, okay, so this is about the previous program that we have written, and here you can see. But if we are passing our default argument as this thing, amount as 100 and discount percentage, it will show as an error that non-default argument follows default argument. So we have to change. First we have to give the discount percentage first and later on this amount. Then the keyword arguments. We'll come across this keyword argument in later chapters also. So keywords argument are those argument in which we will be passing parameters to the function by giving its name. At that particular time, its position is not that much required. Suppose this is a function, say a, b, and c, and we are just printing the values, and we are passing, here you can see that we are passing c first, later on b, and later on a. We can pass it on any order since we are mentioning it name, so you can say that it is a keyword argument. Okay, now we will move to our programs because our slide is limited to 10 minutes. Here you can see the scope of the variable. It is example like this x is value 20. Here we now we can see here that f1 here in this particular function we have defined x as 20 and this particular x is 30. So when we will be printing, they will be printing some different values like 20 and 30. Okay, so here we can see that x is 20 and x is 30. Similarly, now we are giving example of default arguments. Result, when we are adding, it shows different values. Okay, 50 and 21.